The smell reached them first. 20,000 rotting corpses don't just assault your eyes, they invade every sense. As Sultan Mehmed II rode toward the Wallachian capital in June 1462, he expected resistance. What he found was something else entirely. A forest, but not of trees, of human beings impaled on stakes, arranged in perfect geometric circles spanning 7 acres. Some bodies blackened by weeks of decay, others still moving, still moaning. At the center, on the tallest stake, wearing full ceremonial armor, Hamza Pasha, Mehmed's own general, the man who conquered Constantinople, who ended the 1,000-year Byzantine Empire, spoke words that echo through history. "I cannot take the land of a man who does such things." And he retreated. This is the story of the real Dracula, the making of a monster winter, 1431. Sigishwara, Transylvania. A child enters the world in a stone house marked with a dragon. They name him Vlad, after his father. History will know him differently. His father, Vlad II Dracul, belongs to the Order of the Dragon, a Christian military order defending Europe from Ottoman expansion. Dracul means dragon in Romanian. His son becomes Dracula, son of the dragon. But that's not the name that will strike terror across 2 continents. The world Vlad is born into is dying. The Ottoman Empire pushes westward. Christian kingdoms collapse. Constantinople will soon fall. Between the Muslim Ottomans and Christian Europe lies Wallachia, a buffer zone soaked in blood. This is where young Vlad learns his first lesson. Power comes from fear, and fear comes from pain. 1442. The hostage Sultan Murad II summons Vlad Dracul for diplomatic talks. It's a trap. But Dracul has no choice. He brings his 2 youngest sons, 11-year-old Vlad and 7-year-old Radu. The moment they cross into Ottoman territory, they're arrested. The Sultan's offer, leave your sons as hostages to guarantee loyalty, or watch them die. Dracul chooses freedom. He rides away. Vlad watches his father's figure disappear into the distance. His childhood ends in that moment. The Ottoman court claims noble hostages receive education, languages, philosophy, military tactics. For Radu, Vlad's beautiful younger brother, this is true. Radu thrives. He converts to Islam, becomes the Sultan's favorite. But Vlad refuses to bend. He spits at Turkish tutors, refuses to learn the Quran, attacks other hostages who insult Christianity. For this defiance, he pays, the falaka, beating the soles of the feet until they split. The bastinado, hanging upside down while guards strike the body with sticks. Starvation, isolation, darkness, and something else. Something that will define everything that follows. Vlad is forced to watch Ottoman executions, specifically impalements. He's 12 years old, studying how the stake must be blunt, not sharp, to avoid piercing vital organs too quickly. How the correct angle guides it alongside the spine, emerging through the shoulder or mouth, keeping victims alive for days. He files away every detail. The betrayal back in Wallachia. Everything collapses. Wallachian nobles, allied with Hungarian regent John Hunyadi, ambush Vlad Dracul in the marshes. They hack him to pieces. But they save something special for Vlad's older brother, Mircea. First, they blind him with hot irons. Then, while he's still screaming, they bury him alive. When word reaches the Ottoman court, 16-year-old Vlad receives the news with strange calm. No tears, no rage. He simply asks, "How long did my brother take to die underground?" 6 years of torture haven't broken Vlad. They've transformed him. Every beating, Every humiliation, every forced viewing of impalement has taught him not how to submit, but how to inflict. The Ottomans release him with a small force to claim his father's throne. His first reign lasts 2 months, but those 2 months preview what's coming. A merchant complains about theft. Vlad has the suspect's feet skinned, salt rubbed into the raw flesh. This is just practice. The historical record of what follows is disturbing in its detail and consistency across multiple sources. If you appreciate historical documentaries that examine the darker chapters of our past without censorship, consider leaving a like on this video. The Forest of the Dead. For 8 years, Vlad serves in various armies, learning the art of war. He even fights alongside John Hunyadi, the man who killed his father, because revenge can wait, but knowledge cannot. He studies fortification, cavalry tactics, psychological warfare. Most importantly, he builds a network of supporters who share his hatred of both Ottomans and treacherous boyars. With Hungarian support, Vlad invades Wallachia. He meets the current ruler, Vladislav II, in single combat. According to legend, he doesn't just kill him. He saws through the neck while Vladislav still lives. Easter Sunday, 1457. Vlad invites hundreds of boyar families to a feast at his palace in Târgoviște. These are the people who betrayed his father, who buried his brother alive. They come dressed in their finest clothes, believing the new prince wants peace. The feast is magnificent. Wine flows. Music plays. Then Vlad stands and asks a question. How many princes have you seen rule Wallachia in your lifetime? The boyars, wine-drunk and honest, give various answers. 5, 20. Some elderly nobles admit to 30 different princes. Each admission is a confession. They've survived by switching sides, by betraying every ruler when convenient. Vlad nods thoughtfully. Then he gives a signal. Soldiers burst through every door. In minutes, hundreds of boyars are chained. The old and infirm are impaled immediately in the courtyard. The screaming begins while the feast hall still echoes with music. For the young and strong, Vlad has different plans. Still in their Easter finery, they march north to a ruined fortress. For months, they rebuild Poenary Castle, stone by stone. They work until their fine clothes rot off. When they collapse, they're impaled. This is just the beginning. 1459. Brasov. This Saxon merchant city has been harboring Vlad's enemies. He sends a warning. They ignore it. Vlad brings 20,000 soldiers and transforms the city into a gallery of horror. Men, women, children, impaled in neat rows. Babies impaled on the same stake as their mothers, positioned at the breast as if nursing. Pregnant women with stakes driven through their wombs. But here's what separates Vlad from ordinary tyrants. He has a table set up in the middle of this forest of dying humans. Servants bring him a full meal. Vlad sits and eats while surrounded by thousands of people in various stages of dying. The moaning, the screaming, the begging. It's dinner music. One of his boyars covers his nose against the stench. Vlad notices. Does the smell bother you? The boyar admits it does. Vlad has him impaled on a stake twice as high as the others. You'll be above the smell up there. Medieval chroniclers record something else. According to both German and Russian sources, Vlad dips his bread in the blood pooling beneath the stakes. Blood-soaked bread becomes his preferred meal during mass executions. The numbers are staggering. Conservative estimates, 40,000 dead. Others say 80,000. In a principality of only 500,000 people, he may have killed 20% of his own population, proportionally more than Stalin or Pol Pot. But unlike those dictators, Vlad doesn't delegate. He personally supervises. He innovates. Basic impalement isn't enough. He develops variations. Stakes through the mouth for liars, through the skull for thieves. Women who commit adultery receive stakes through their vaginas, emerging through their mouths. He impales people upside down, sideways, in patterns that spell messages. The turban's Sultan Mehmed II demands tribute, 500 boys for the Janissary Corps, children to be converted to Islam and trained as soldiers. Vlad's response, "Come and get them yourself." Ottoman envoys arrive to collect the tribute. They refuse to remove their turbans in Vlad's presence, citing religious custom. Vlad congratulates them on their devotion. Then he has their turbans nailed to their skulls with 3-inch iron spikes. They're sent back to Constantinople still alive, still wearing their holy headgear, now permanently attached. The Sultan sends an army led by Hamza Pasha. Vlad ambushes them at night, capturing thousands. Every single prisoner is impaled. For Hamza Pasha, Vlad prepares something special. The general is castrated first, his genitals stuffed in his mouth. Then he's impaled on a gold-covered stake. Even in torture, rank must be respected. The psychological question historians debate is whether Vlad's childhood trauma explains his actions or merely enabled something already present. What's your interpretation? Leave your thoughts in the comments. The Sultan's retreat. This brings us to 1462 and the event that would cement Vlad's reputation forever. Sultan Mehmed II, called the Conqueror after taking Constantinople, personally leads an army of 150,000 men into Wallachia. Vlad has maybe 30,000. He can't win a direct battle, so he doesn't fight directly. As the Ottoman army advances, they find a wasteland. Vlad has burned every field, poisoned every well, evacuated every village. The Turks march through ash and silence. But that's not the worst part. Vlad sends diseased prostitutes into the Ottoman camps. Men infected with plague infiltrate their ranks. The mighty Ottoman army begins dying before any battle starts. June 17, 1462. The night attack with a small force of elite cavalry, Vlad infiltrates the Ottoman camp under cover of darkness. The goal? Assassinate Mehmed in his tent and end the invasion with one stroke. Vlad personally leads the charge, cutting through guards, searching for the Sultan's pavilion. But in the darkness and chaos, they hit the wrong tent. The assassination fails. Vlad barely escapes as the entire camp mobilizes. The next day, Mehmed continues toward Târgoviște. The gates are open. No defenders on the walls. The Sultan suspects a trap, advances carefully. Then they see it. For miles around the city, covering 7 acres, stand wooden stakes, 20,000 of them. On each stake, a human being in various stages of death and decay. Turks captured in previous battles. Bulgarian Muslims who supported the Ottomans. Wallachian traitors. Some have been dead for weeks, their bodies black with rot, crows picking at exposed flesh. Others, impaled more recently, still move, still moan. The geometry is deliberate. Stakes arranged in concentric circles like a grotesque garden. The tallest stakes in the center hold the highest-ranking victims. Hamza Pasha's gold stake glints at the apex, his body long dead, but still wearing ceremonial armor. The smell makes hardened soldiers vomit. The sight makes them weep. These are men who've conquered cities, who've seen Constantinople fall. But this is beyond warfare. Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror looks at this forest of the dead and speaks, "I cannot take the land of a man who does such things. What can one do against such a demon?" He turns his army around. The man who never retreated, retreats. Here's the truly disturbing part. Vlad considers this his masterpiece. While Mehmed flees, Vlad walks among the stakes like an artist in his gallery. He adjusts bodies that have slipped. He notes which angles of impalement last longest. One captured Turkish chronicle records that Vlad would visit the impalement fields at night, alone. He would sit among the dying and listen to their moans like music. The fall the Ottomans leave, but they leave behind Vlad's brother Radu with troops. Beautiful Radu, who thrived in Ottoman captivity, offers Wallachians a choice: support him and live in peace, or stick with the impaling madman. It's not a hard choice. Vlad's own nobles abandon him. His army melts away. By August 1462, he's fleeing to Hungary, seeking help from King Matthias Corvinus. But Matthias has been communicating with the Ottomans. When Vlad arrives, he's arrested. For 12 years, he rots in Hungarian captivity. Guards report finding dead rats carefully impaled on splinters in Vlad's cell. Small birds skewered on sharpened quills, miniature impalement fields with insects pinned to pieces of wood. When asked why, he says he doesn't want to lose his skill. 12 years in a cell, and his primary concern is maintaining his technique for torturing living things. Politics shift. Hungary needs allies against the Ottomans again. Vlad is released, given a Hungarian noble bride. He converts to Catholicism, a political move, and receives troops to reclaim Wallachia. His third reign begins in 1476. He's in his 40s now, but the cruelty hasn't aged. If anything, imprisonment has fermented it into something worse. The impalements resume immediately. He forces families to watch each other being impaled in order. Children first, then mothers, then fathers. One story from this period is so grotesque that even contemporary chroniclers hesitated to record it. A group of Turkish prisoners are brought before Vlad. He has them impaled in a specific pattern: shorter stakes in front, taller behind, creating an amphitheater of agony. In the center, he has a pregnant woman impaled vertically. As she dies over hours, she gives birth on the stake. Vlad watches the entire process, taking notes on how long each stage takes. December 1476. Vlad is marching with a small force when he's ambushed by Ottoman troops. The details vary. Some say he was assassinated by his own men, tired of serving a monster. Others say the Turks overwhelmed him. What we know? Vlad the Impaler dies in battle. His head is severed from his body. The Turks take his head to Constantinople, where Sultan Mehmed II has it displayed on a stake above the city gates. There's poetry in that. The Impaler finally impaled, if only in death. His body is supposedly buried at Snagov Monastery. But when archaeologists opened his supposed tomb in 1931, they found it empty. The legacy. You might expect me to discuss Bram Stoker and vampire legends. I won't, because the real horror of Vlad's legacy isn't fiction. It's fact. In Romania today, Vlad is considered a national hero. The man who murdered 80,000 people, who dined on blood-soaked bread while watching children die on stakes, who impaled babies to their mothers' breasts. This man has statues. His face is on tourist merchandise. Romanian nationalists praise him as a defender of Christianity, a bulwark against Islamic invasion. They focus on his resistance to the Ottomans and ignore the screaming forests of the dead. They celebrate his harsh justice. He supposedly made Wallachia so safe that a golden cup could be left at a public fountain without being stolen. They don't mention that safety came from terror so absolute that people were afraid to breathe wrong. This is the real horror. Not that monsters exist, but that we rehabilitate them, that we find ways to excuse the inexcusable because the monster was on our side. Medieval rulers were brutal by necessity. Vlad was brutal by choice, by preference, by pleasure. Other rulers used execution as a tool. Vlad used it as entertainment. Modern psychologists studying historical records classify Vlad as a sadistic psychopath with probable sexual dysfunction. Many of his specific impalement methods targeted sexual organs. They note his childhood trauma, his forced observation of torture, his powerlessness as a hostage. Classic serial killer development, except this serial killer had an army and a country. But perhaps the most chilling detail comes from those who knew him personally. They describe a man who was cultured, intelligent, even charming when he chose. He spoke multiple languages, wrote poetry, understood theology and philosophy. He wasn't a mindless brute. He was worse, a brilliant mind that chose to use its gifts for creating the most exquisite suffering possible. Russian chronicles describe foreign merchants visiting Vlad's court. He treats them well, shows hospitality. Then, as they're leaving, he mentions casually that he had their servants impaled while they dined, just to see if they'd notice. They didn't. He laughs and lets them discover the bodies on their way out. In his final letter, written days before his death, Vlad complains that his Hungarian allies don't let him impale as freely as he'd like. Even facing a massive Ottoman invasion, his main concern is that he can't torture enough people. When that Turkish sword finally took his head, it wasn't killing a defender of Christendom. It was exterminating a rabid animal that happened to wear a crown. The final truth. The real Dracula didn't fear crosses or sunlight. He didn't drain blood with fangs. He did something worse. He proved that with enough childhood trauma and unchecked power, a human being can become more monstrous than any myth. 20,000 corpses rotting on stakes, babies dying on their mothers' breasts, children forced to watch parents impaled in order, pregnant women giving birth while dying on poles. This isn't legend. This isn't exaggeration. This is history recorded by multiple sources from multiple nations, all painting the same picture. And the most disturbing truth, he won. His terror tactics worked. The Ottomans hesitated to invade Wallachia for years after his death. His name became a curse that Turkish mothers used to frighten children. Kazaklı Voyvoda, the Impaler Prince. The forest of corpses outside Targovishte wasn't just a war crime. It was a mission statement. Mehmed the Conqueror, who had seen cities burn and empires fall, looked at that forest and saw something that conquering couldn't fix, something that winning couldn't cure. He saw the face of human evil stripped of all pretense, all justification, all humanity. And he ran. Vlad III died in winter 1476, his head decorating a Turkish spike. But his legacy, that humans can surpass any fictional monster in cruelty, lives forever. Every dictator who uses terror, every killer who finds pleasure in pain, every damaged child who grows up to damage others, they're all children of Vlad the Impaler, the man who made hell on earth and called it justice. The historical record of Vlad Tepes remains one of the most thoroughly documented cases of systematic cruelty in medieval Europe. If this documentary gave you new perspective on the line between historical figure and myth, consider liking, commenting with your thoughts, and subscribing for more deep-dive historical content. Thank you for watching.